We are live. Still working the King's South, folks. Nathan Baird from Yeti Star.
Sam King from the Journal and Courier.
Purdue just finished off a 34-17 victory. More to the point, finished off the post-game press conferences after a 34-17 victory over Southern Illinois. Boy, it didn't look good after a couple drives. But then, much like in game one, Purdue took control of the game and maintained control of the game pretty much from that point on.
The thing that obviously was very important, as you mentioned, it was kind of a rocky start for the defense, getting gashed for 150 yards on 2 touchdown drives to start the game. But the offense was countering that each time it had the ball. So you're staying in the game long enough for the defense to ultimately get off the field. And once Purdue got the lead, it never relinquished it. And the defense was pretty dominant after those first 2 drives.
Yeah, there's a couple different places we can go with this, but I think that we'll get to Devin Mockabee in a minute. Let's talk about defense, because that was really the thing that stood out as maybe what was going to be potentially the storyline of the night. I mean, Southern Illinois did what it wanted on those first couple of drives, and you saw too many things. And I know Barry Odom wants this separation from last season, but he has to, as we talked about last week, you got to separate in performance, not just in words and names. And that first drive did not separate from what we saw a lot of last season. Those first 2 drives, it was a lot of Southern Illinois really getting to the edge a lot. It was corners and linebackers who weren't getting off blocks. It was some miscommunications, as Barry Odom was alluding to there, where they, SIU went empty and they didn't get the check made and led to a big play. Like, it was just a lot of, they looked unsettled and out of sorts on those first 2 drives. And obviously from that point on, I think Southern Illinois had 4 explosive plays on the first 2 drives. And then I can't remember if they got some late. I can't remember. I'd have to look, but like until deep in the fourth quarter, they didn't have any more. And once Purdue's defense made this game about who could drive 4 touchdowns and who couldn't, it was Purdue's game.
Yeah. Now, Southern Illinois did miss a couple of opportunities. There was a wheel route that was wide open that was an overthrow, a couple others. But, credit to Purdue for forcing the quarterback to have to maybe hurry and get rid of the ball sooner than he would have liked to. One thing I was kind of looking for after those first 2 drives, I looked out there to see which defensive player was going to take control. And we've heard about Manny Powell being a leader, and he is of this team. He's a captain. He's played a lot of college football. But I thought Charles Correa, this was really a breakout game for him. He only ends up with 5 tackles. But I pointed out to you one point in game, C.J. Nunley, I think, was shifting to the other side, and he grabbed him and said, "No, go back there." And Nunley ends up being in the spot where the ball goes and makes the tackle. I thought he just, was very good. And then it was nice to hear the story after the game of last year, Charles Correa at UNLV wasn't going to play a lot because he's second on the depth chart to an All-American middle linebacker, but he's standing there every play, kind of going through the progressions from afar. And you kind of see the payoff of that now, where he's in a position that he's got to play a lot. And he's gone through, maybe not a lot of game reps, but a lot of mental reps to prepare for game reps. And this, it was great to see somebody, especially somebody who's a true sophomore, step up and have a big game like that.
Yeah, there were a couple of plays in those first couple drives where I just saw veteran guys who weren't making veteran plays. Like, all the experience that this defense supposedly has and does have, on paper, wasn't really showing up. What I did see, though, for the second week in a row was guys, Crew Wakely really sets a physical tone out there when he plays. He's really popping guys. And I kind of wonder if he needs to be in this game earlier. Like, could they have used that sort of physical tone early in this game? I don't know. There's a trade-off that you're probably getting there for other aspects of the defense. Smiley Bradford, I thought, made a handful of plays in this game. There was the 4th down stop he made. He was coming in on a blitz from the nickel that forced DJ Williams kind of up into the pocket when he eventually got taken down on another kind of series-killing play. It's the second string guys in this defense are making plays, and I'm just curious if, as we get farther into the season, if you start to see some changes on the depth chart as far as maybe some guys flipping position, not flipping their positions, but moving from 2 to 1 and vice versa.
Yeah, and one thing that I think you asked the question last week about how many substitutions Purdue had in the first half. 20-something guys played defense in the first half against Ball State. And he said, as long as that many guys prove that they're capable of going out there and playing reps in a game, I'll keep doing it. But at some point, you've got to whittle down to, you see this with basketball quite a bit. You start out with a 12-man rotation that gets down to 10, that by the end of the season, you're really playing 7 guys that are going to help you and win the game. Football's going to have to get to that point too, where it's like, okay, we're going to really have to get to the 15 or so guys maybe that, have to play more plays, and maybe you still substitute 22, 23 guys, but the reps for those guys become more and more limited. This is still a week by week process. But the true test now comes next week and the week after that. And then that's, for the rest of the season, Purdue's schedule is a massive grind. So you got through the part that everybody thought Purdue would be 2-0 through these first 2 games.
Barry Odom said last week, those are the guys who had, as you said, they had proven they were ready to play. They were game ready, right? Well, is the standard for game ready what it takes to compete against Ball State, or it had all those people in their estimation proven that they were Big Ten game ready? Because this team does not look like it's ready to beat the best teams in the Big Ten by any stretch. And that's what they're going to be playing potentially here in the next couple of weeks. I don't know what USC did tonight, but it's Lincoln Riley, and they've had some ups and downs the last couple of years where they haven't done as well as people expected, but they've still been a winning program in those seasons. Notre Dame was in the national championship game last year, and Illinois just went on the road today and had a really impressive win at Duke. And that's the next 3 games. And there's a break in there before the Illinois game, but still, one thing that I think can't be lost in this game is, yes, it was important that the offense came out and equalized both those early touchdowns for Southern Illinois. But Southern Illinois also made big penalties to help both of those drives happen. And I don't know where this game would have been if that hadn't happened. If Purdue doesn't maybe get some help to get those touchdowns early on, and now they're playing from behind more, I think this game changes a little bit. And I thought an important play in this game was Jesse Watson, who is like the smallest dude on the roster, catches a 4th down pass from Ryan Brown, gets drilled, but hangs onto the ball, converts the 4th down. They only get a field goal out of that, but from that point on, they're up 17-14. And I thought now that defense with a lead could settle into things and start being the defense that we saw for the rest of this game.
Yeah, and that was kind of a proof that every guy on the roster matters, or every guy on the field matters, because Jesse Watson's not a name we've talked about a lot. He's pretty explosive guy. He can be a playmaker, but he's not going to get a lot of targets. So you got to capitalize when you do get a target, and he gets a target in really a pivotal moment in the game, and he cashes in on it. That ends up probably not talked about a whole lot, but it is a game-changing moment for how this turned out.
And I just think like things like those SIU penalties early on, we have to keep those in mind, because those things get baked into like the performance. And it's why, for instance, we were kind of talking in the press box at one point tonight, like, what do we think the line's going to be on Purdue USC, assuming USC won tonight? And we were thinking it's probably going to be around 3 touchdowns, like somewhere in that 19-21 range. And for a team that's 2-0 and controlled the vast majority of the first 2 games, maybe that seems off, but considering where this team was coming from, and some of the things like this, where it hasn't been like the most aesthetically pleasing first 2 games against 2 teams that it was heavily favored to beat. It just shows how much work still has to be done, and not a lot of time to do it if you want to beat USC next Saturday.
Yeah, very much so. And a lot of the guys from the last Big Ten championship team will be back for that game. So even added emphasis, I'm sure some of those guys are going to talk to the team, things of that sort. But, not that puts more pressure on you, but you would like to perform well for those guys, I would imagine. On the flip side of things, we can talk about the defense giving up 132 yards total after 150 yards on the first 2 drives, really hunkered down there. But I thought, we talked on Boilers Extra earlier this week, I said I really wanted to see this offensive line show that it can, impose its will a little bit. And Purdue rushed, 50 times, I think, the team, 32 times along by Devin Mockbee, went for over 200 yards rushing. That's kind of what I thought Purdue might be doing against Ball State, and then Ball State just played the run. So naturally, Purdue threw the ball. But good to see Purdue kind of be punch in the mouth. A lot of the runs weren't, breaking 20-yard runs. It was more like hitting a guy off your back and getting 4 yards and kind of moving slowly and methodically. It's your senior running back who climb up the career rushing chart, 100-yard game, a couple of touchdowns, and use him in a variety of ways. Got a couple of passes as well. I thought that was a nice step. I think Southern Illinois will be a better team than Baltimore. So,
definitely.
Yeah, we took a step in the right direction, going from the teams in MAC, the lower level MAC, one of the top teams at FCS, to now you're going to be playing a Big Ten team that's probably picked up somewhere in the middle of the pack, but clearly talented, some big time players on USC's roster.
Well, in this quarterback, and there's still a lot out there about however much to go play power conference teams in the offseason and chose to come back. He's got another year of eligibility, so we'll see where he's playing next year. But we were all, I thought, impressed, especially early on with DJ Williams. And we talked coming into this game early in the week with Mike Scherer, very open about the problems of facing a mobile quarterback. And I thought you saw that tonight. And he only rushed for 19 net yards because he lost so much on sacks. 45 he actually gained. But still, it was more the threat of him running that I thought caused this defense problems early than what he was actually doing with his legs. That's an adjustment they're going to have to make. They're going to have to be better prepared for that the next time they see it, because as good as we thought he was, there's a long line of really good quarterbacks in the Big Ten right now. Like, I think 12 of the 18 teams in the Big Ten started quarterback with either a 5-star or a 4-star that roughly like top 200 or better. Like, that's what the Big Ten is now. Like, it's a quarterback league now. It didn't used to be, but it is now. And they're going to have to be better prepared. And I thought they would be, frankly. Like, they were already talking about it. They saw a mobile quarterback last week, although one who couldn't hurt them in the air the way DJ Williams could. And more importantly, they went through all the preseason camp seeing 4 different mobile quarterbacks. And it seemed tonight really shaken up, really. But they obviously made the adjustment. It's just that you have to get it based on the Big Ten standard. You couldn't perform the same against the teams that left in the schedule. They're not going to give you the opportunity to march right back down and equalize the score that way.
Yeah, and Gary been hired in December. He said pretty much it's just getting drilled into our heads now. We've got to be better tomorrow than for today. We've got to be better next week than for this week. And that's the approach that you take. And, I do think a lot, but there's got to be a more significant improvement, I think, now moving forward, because you can't go back and give up 2 scoring drives to start the game and just hope to bail you out to win that game long enough for defense to come around. But all told, this is the team that will win next year. It's completely different. So being 2-0, it's kind of hard to do too much right now.
I mean, you doubled last year in games, right? And it's already been made, first time since the Purdue coach started 2-0. Now most of them can get in Southern Illinois out of the gate. A lot of them had to play a Big Ten or Notre Dame or both in their first games. So, but still, compared to what they used to play, they used to play like schools, all sorts of stuff.
So it would not be Washington DePaul.
Yeah,
Division III.
Right, but frankly, there's a story up on NBC.com and NBCOnline.com, right? I see the kind of details what it was like games in 1916 and before, and there's some interesting names on that list. Some other things before we wrap up here, there's a bunch of little things that happen in this game that I think matter. Like Ahmad Branch taking 2 catches for 30 yards, but again, like start of the game, he and Ryan Brown just have that connection, touchdown, equalize the game after the 7-0 start, and then I think George Burr in the second half the way he did. He ends 48 yards, needs Purdue in receiving yards. Like, they need him. He's a different athlete than what they have at tight end from some of these other guys, and they're going to need him a bigger presence than he's been able to be so far. And I think it's been fine that they have sort of brought him along because they want him to be that presence. But he's the kind of guy that presence can make a difference in a game against some of the teams that they're going to be playing the rest of the way.
Yeah, I put this on X during the game. George Burhan has produced the receiver tonight, and the fact that he's even playing right now is, impressive because we were there when he snapped his leg in practice last year, and there was no way at the time that, and he was really he was probably the player of his brain at that point. There was no way he was going to come back this year, and he played some. He got 1 target overthrown, and I think there was a penalty on it for an eligible for downfield in it. Break situation, but he proved he's a big part of it tonight. And he's a guy that can progressively become more involved in the offense. That's a weapon that we talk about USC and Notre Dame in weeks. If he can get to the point where he's a reliable weapon, I think that Purdue have a chance to stay in the games, and then it just comes down to kind of who makes plays in the second half.
One of the things that didn't really sit that well with me was those personal fouls. Like, you had a chance to put this game away, and Southern Illinois had not done any offensively for a couple of hours of real time at that point. And Breon Ishmael and Charles Correa commit personal fouls and give Southern Illinois life. But then the positive was CJ Nunnally, as you mentioned before, rises up and starts smashing guys and kills that drive. And, well, actually, they did get a field goal out of it, which was 3 yards. Yeah, they took it from a theoretical three possession game with 7.5 minutes left to an actual 3 possession game with 7.5 minutes left, and then they're calling timeouts in the in the last minute. I was a little annoyed with just how Southern Illinois approached things tonight, but Purdue is obviously happy. You can hear them like we're in. And you didn't hear it a lot last season, obviously, but we're sitting in there waiting for Baird to come in. The players of the team have just gotten back in to their locker room apparently, and all kind of go up from whatever they were saying to each other after the game. And I think we said this before the season: get these 2 wins. Don't stub your toe here. Get these 2 wins, and if you buy into a process, there's going to be opportunities. I don't know if it's any of the next 3 games, but there's eventually going to be opportunities to be in this position again where you can turn the game over to Devin Mockabee late and just let him grind you towards a win. Those opportunities will be there later this season on the schedule, but corny as coaching is, you have to just buy into this process, keep trying to build through what is going to be this next pretty tough phase of the schedule.
Yeah, and I think Purdue's competitive in some of these games last year that were blowouts by 40-plus points. I think people will, fans will buy into, hey, this is changing. In terms of what they want, it'll be in terms of product on the field. And I think so far through 2 games, even though it is Ball State and Southern Illinois, who has more talent and should win those games, also watching the product on the field, it just looks and feels different than what we went through last season.
We're going to stop it there. Late at night, we've got other work to do before they kick us out of here. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back with extra midweek